12-year-old girl in Texas escapes from an alleged house of torture. And prosecutors say it was a pair of 30-something sisters who are responsible for the alleged psychological torment and sexual exploitation of this young girl. Tonight, the details connected to these horrendous allegations. In the Hollywood Hills of California, Celeste Rivas, a 15-year-old from Lake Elsinore, was found dead on September 8, 2025, inside the front trunk of a Tesla registered to David Anthony Burke, an internet celebrity and recording artist known simply as David. Her body was badly decomposed, wrapped in a bag, and had been inside the vehicle for weeks before being discovered. The LA County Medical Examiner's report lists the cause of death as deferred pending toxicology and lab results. David's relationship with the minor has come under a lot of scrutiny, but he has not been named as a suspect. New tonight, reports of David allegedly communicating with another underage girl. Tonight, we have all the latest in the investigation. But first, on June 3rd, 2024, Bianca Ellis was captured on video engaging in strange and dangerous behavior, wandering around a police station lobby, turning off the lights, shoplifting knives at a thrift store, then stalking a mom and her toddler in a grocery store while brandishing a knife. When the mom left that store to the parking lot, Ellis attacked that small child, killing him with the knife. She's now on trial for murder, but has pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity. And tonight we take a look at the defense case and ask, is this insanity or is this evil? I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. Great to have you aboard. We're in the middle of this dramatic trial that is taking place in Ohio. It's a case like many others where there are expert witnesses. And the thing about experts inside the courtroom is that they play a very valuable role. The jury, they are the fact finders, but sometimes there are issues that come before a jury that are beyond common sense, that are beyond things that regular folks know about. And when that happens, the court permits both sides or either side to call experts to the stand to help the jury understand the nature of the issues that they're dealing with in that particular case. And we've seen it so many times through the years at Court TV, and sometimes they make a big difference. Remember ARCA, or ACA, as we referred to them during the Karen Reed trial? These were the accident reconstruction experts and the engineers who put together the pieces of evidence from the Karen Reed case and made their case that there was not a collision. That was a case where you had both sides with their own experts, you had a battle, and the battle was won by Karen Reed, the defense experts in that case. And they played a crucial role in the case. And we heard from jurors afterwards. In both the first and the second trial, we got the reaction to these experts. In the first trial, that was a hung jury. The jury disregarded their testimony because they didn't know where they came from. But in the second trial, they knew where they came from, took a look at their evidence, took a look at the experiments and things that they did, and they believed the ARCA experts, which helped in a great amount lead to the not guilty verdict for Karen Reed. Now, this case is about legal insanity. In any case in legal insanity, obviously regular folks who aren't trained don't necessarily understand how the mind works, right? You need an expert, a psychiatric expert, to come in and explain and to evaluate the defendant/patient and then explain those findings to the jury. Now, in this case, both sides will have their experts. The defense goes first because they're introducing the issue in front of the jury, and then prosecutors will have an opportunity to rebut that testimony from that expert witness. And it's important testimony, right? The jury's going to evaluate what the conclusions are and how that expert got to those conclusions based upon the evidence. But the jury is permitted to consider all of the evidence in the case. It's not just the expert testimony. It's the expert testimony plus everything else. So the question is, does everything else, plus the experts, add up to and fulfill the legal burden of legal insanity, or will it fall short? And will this jury find the defendant responsible for killing that child? So I want to show you two different types of evidence in the case. One's going to be from prosecution, one's going to be from the defense. From the prosecution, you're going to hear the raw facts of what happened to little Julian, how he died, testimony from the medical examiner, the reality of what happened. I always say this is such an important part of every trial because this is the moment where the jury gets to understand what actually happened to the victim and how they died and perhaps how they suffered. After that, you'll hear from the forensic psychiatrist for the defense explaining to this jury what was going on in the mind of the defendant from her perspective at the time of the killing. Let's take a look.
The first injury that I note is a stab wound to the left side of the decedent's face. And this is depicted here in the photograph. Here, as you can see on the right side, that margin or edge looks more kind of squared off, and the left side is more pointed. So I can tell it's a single edge instrument that was used to inflict the injury. After taking these photographs, we do look internally to see what is damaged. So with the instance of the stab wound to the cheek, it did go through the mandible, the bone of the jaw on that left side. After it passed through the bone of the jaw, it transected a branch of the carotid artery. So there's the artery that you can feel your pulse. It's quite a large artery. It splits into two portions, and one of those portions was severed. The stab wound continued to go back behind the airway and behind kind of the oral cavity and downward, and nicked the right side of the cervical vertebrae, or the neck spinal column. It didn't hurt the spinal cord, but there was a lot of bleeding in the airway and throughout that wound path. This is the second injury and other stab wound that I documented. So he has a stab wound to the upper left side of his back. This injury passes behind the scapula, but into the chest cavity. It goes through the third and fourth rib in the back on the left side, and then it punctures the left lung. So it extends deep enough that it goes through the large artery that's giving blood to the lung. And so there was quite a bit of blood that will then go into the chest cavity. So in addition to inhaling blood and not being able to breathe that way, there's blood that fills up that chest cavity. I always kind of describe it as trying to blow up a balloon underwater. There's just too much tension on that and it collapses the lung. So there's not a way to breathe. This is a photograph of the left lung once I removed it. So this is the wound that goes through the lung itself and into that artery.
And with regards to State's Exhibit 111, what is the depth of that incision?
Both of the stab wounds, the one to the cheek and to the back, are both 4 inches deep.
What is that cause of death?
Stab wounds of the face and back.
What is the manner of death?
Homicide.
My occasion to see Miss Ellis was a part of my work at North Coast Behavioral. I was assigned to evaluate her case when she was admitted for a 20-day competency evaluation. She was admitted in August of 2024, and that's when I first evaluated her. When I saw her in September, in August, for the September report, she did have a response. Her response, in part, was bizarre. She asked me about Jesus Christ and where he was crucified, and she made some other bizarre statements about Matthew and Jesus and taxes. I did repeat to her, explaining the purpose of my evaluation, and explained non-confidentiality and asked her if she was willing to proceed with the interview, and she did shake her head yes, that she had understanding and agreed to proceed. There are records from a community mental health center. It's called Murtis Taylor. They specialize in treatment of severe and persistent mental illness. She has been a client with them since November of 2014. And typically, individuals with mental illness don't necessarily get treatment when they first develop symptoms. Sometimes it takes a minute. So I would say definitely she had that illness in November 2014, but probably before.
All right, so she's been diagnosed with schizophrenia and schizoaffective disorder in multiple hospital settings?
That's correct. Those records show that she was hospitalized in November of 2015. At that time, she was taken to the emergency department at Lutheran Hospital. Her mother had taken her there because she was not taking medications at the time. She had not slept for 5 days. She was hearing voices. She was expressing suicidal thoughts. She was experiencing these voices raping her and wanting to impregnate her. She thought there was a prophet involved. She had been taken to the Fairview Emergency Department. She had called 911 at that time. She stated that she didn't feel safe. She had been out of medications for about a month. She was unable to obtain refills in the community. She was seeing visions of people coming out of her walls to try to kill her at night. She was talking about Albert Einstein and a bowl of ants. She had been able to sleep. This record stated that she was visibly hallucinating at that time. They admitted her to Marymount Hospital, and she required an 11-day hospitalization and was stabilized on antipsychotic medication at that time.
She still carries an active diagnosis of schizophrenia?
Yes, schizophrenia is a brain disorder. So once you have it, it's a lifelong brain disorder. It does not go away. It's chronic illness.
Without medication, would her symptoms likely return?
Absolutely. I mean, we know it for most people, that's true. But we know it as a fact for Miss Ellis because we have her records. It's very clear from her records when she stops medication or when she runs out, her symptoms return.
Did you have the occasion to watch any video of Miss Ellis at her arraignment for her legal proceedings?
Yes, I saw that.
And the observations that you made when you first met her in person and what you saw in those videos, is that consistent with your observations at North Coast?
Yes, her presentation in the arraignments is similar to her presentation at North Coast with the disengaging, leaning down, the bizarre affect. That is all consistent.
Dr. Testa, to the ordinary person, she looks like she's laughing.
Correct.
While the judge is identifying the most serious of charges. Is there an explanation for that?
Well, as a psychiatrist looking at that behavior does not fit the setting. That does not fit the occasion. It's what we would call an incongruent affect or an incongruent emotional expression. The behavior is just not appropriate for the setting. She also looks to the side at points or looks up. That could indicate that she's perceiving something that none of us can perceive, that is in fact funny or is in fact amusing, but we cannot perceive that. That's another explanation for that behavior. What I can say is that is the behavior that we observed at North Coast while she was off medications. When she got onto medications, that behavior stopped. That symptom is not controllable. So if that indeed is a symptom of schizophrenia, that affective inappropriateness, that is not controllable.
Okay, we need our own expert to sort of put all of this into context. Psychiatrist, forensic specialist, medical health expert, Dr. Yalda Safai joins us. Doctor, great to have you here. Thank you so much. Let's talk about what's going through the mind of someone suffering from what she has been suffering from at the moment that she is taking the life of an innocent child. To me, that's obviously what this jury has to figure out. But is there a world where she thinks she's doing something good or doesn't think this is wrong?
Absolutely. So in order to be declared not guilty by reason of insanity, actually the defense has to prove at the moment that she committed the crime, A, she didn't understand what she was doing, and B, she didn't know that what she was doing was wrong. And that has to be as a result of mental illness. From my experience treating hundreds of people with schizophrenia, at the time they're doing something, they don't always realize what they're doing. And it isn't until they get stabilized with medications that they gain some clarity and sometimes don't even remember the events that happened when they were in the midst of a psychotic episode. This is actually very common in people who are diagnosed with schizophrenia. Like this woman said, this is a lifelong illness. And if people with schizophrenia don't get their medications, they get a break from reality. Their own reality is very different from you and I's. Even in cases of people who've had postpartum psychosis, in their mind, they may be doing something as a service. I mean, they might think that, killing their child will be the only way to save them. It's their delusion, it's their reality, which is not our reality. So that's actually very common. So at the moment she was committing this crime, I honestly believe she probably even doesn't remember or realize what she did, or there was something internally going on with her that made her compelled her to do so. Remember, people who have schizophrenia have command-type auditory hallucinations at times. And these hallucinations are usually derogatory and negative, and they tell them to do stuff. So it's very possible.
I understand that. Now, in the cases where I've seen successful insanity defenses at trial in front of a jury, in Texas, Andrea Yates is the first one everyone thinks of. She believed she was saving her children from the devil by drowning them. There was another woman who believed she was saving her children from the devil by bashing their heads in with rocks. Two horrific cases, two women found not guilty by reason of insanity. What I'm trying to understand is, in those cases, from that expert testimony and what we learned, they thought they were doing something good. Not just that they didn't have control of what they were doing, but they actually thought they were doing something good when they were doing something horrific. How can we tell in a case like this, with a woman like this, if she thinks she's doing something good versus the voices could be telling her to do something bad and she can't stop herself from doing it, but she knows she's doing something bad? Did you understand what I'm trying to slice here? Because I think it's really important.
Exactly, and part of the insanity plea is to prove that at the time that they committed this act, they didn't understand right from wrong. Does that make sense? So they have to. The defense has to.
But how do you figure out if it's like an uncontrollable impulse versus I think I'm actually doing the right thing, right? Like, to me, that mindset fits perfectly with the legal standard, but like, I can't stop myself from killing you is different.
So people with schizophrenia don't always have impulse control issues, but they do have problems determining what is right or wrong, what is reality and what is not reality. They oftentimes get extremely paranoid that they do things out of paranoia. So with people who have the disorder that she has in this case, impulse control problems like that are usually not an issue, but telling right from wrong is an issue. I think in this case, they will look at her whole history, her past behavior, and try to come to a conclusion of whether at that time, depending on her past behavior and depending on her pathology, did she know right from wrong? It's very difficult to prove, as you know, and most people don't go this insanity route plea because it's usually not successful, but it's something that the defense has to figure out a way to prove.
Yeah, and when it's successful, usually is when the experts agree. But obviously we have a trial, so the experts are not agreeing. Dr. Yalda Safai, great to have you aboard. Thank you so much. Let's bring in our think tank. Joining us tonight, criminal defense attorney, legal analyst Carmen Rowe, and criminal defense attorney and lawyer Lori on TikTok. It's Lori Murray. And attorney Ali Benevento. Great to see everyone tonight. Let me throw this out, okay? Give me the reality of how juries and our system treat someone like this who has committed a brutal killing of an innocent child, right? A child she's not connected to in any way whatsoever, versus this documented history of mental illness. I will begin with Carmen Rowe.
You know, you brought up Andrea Yates. Keep in mind that case had to be tried twice here in Texas before she was ultimately found not guilty by reason of insanity. And that's because we have children that are dead. And those cases are difficult. There's a moral culpability here and there's a legal culpability. And we talk here in Texas, because of Andrea Yates and cases like it, about how the law does not meet up with the medical science that we know exists for people, particularly with people with schizophrenia, which is a very serious mental health issue. So we know she has a mental health issue. The only question is whether or not this jury is going to find that by reason of insanity, she committed this terrible offense.
Go ahead, Lori, I heard you.
I couldn't see myself on there, so I didn't know whether to speak. But I want to say, you know, you talked about the difference between the impulse control versus knowing the right from the wrong, and that is the legal standard. But if you have no impulse control and you can't stop yourself from doing something because of your mental illness, then what is actually the difference there? I mean, this is a tragic situation, and this just goes to show another hole in our system for providing mental health care, because this woman couldn't get the drugs that she needed, the prescriptions that she needed, and it's tragic. But even if it is something that she knew or maybe had an idea was not the right thing to do, that it was wrong to do, if you can't stop yourself from doing it because of your illness, then it should, in my opinion, still be a not guilty by reasonable or by insanity.
Yeah, I agree with Lori and Carmen, Vinny. I think, you know, this is a perfect example of how the mental health crisis in our country has also kind of morphed into a public safety emergency. And here you have a woman, I mean, it's hard to watch. If you go back and look through some of the footage from other hearings, she is very clearly a woman in the midst of a mental health crisis. And the question, you know, going back to your example, does she think she's doing something good? Well, I don't know that I agree with that analysis per se. I think, as we heard the doctor say, it matters whether she was able to appreciate the wrongfulness of her conduct at the time that it was committed. And, you know, that's going to be the question for the jury. Do they believe that she was really incapable of appreciating that stabbing a child to death was wrong? And was that as a result of her mental illness? But I think this is a horrific
I don't
tragedy
think
all
you
the way
can
around.
find someone guilty who knows they're doing something wrong. Is that what you're saying?
No,
appreciating the wrongfulness. There's a difference, though, between not being able to control yourself and knowing that you're doing something wrong.
But your example was that perhaps she thought she was doing something good. I don't think they have to show that her mindset was so skewed that she thought she was doing a good deed, but rather that because of her mental illness, she could not appreciate the wrongfulness of her conduct in the moment. That was the distinction I was making.
Yeah,
Something to keep in mind.
Go ahead.
Vinny, is that a lot of people think that if she's found not guilty by reason of insanity, she's going home. Andrea Yates is still in a mental facility.
Because she wants to be. Because she wants to be.
Well,
don't leave out all the facts here, Carmen. Come on now. She's eligible to come out. When I was a prosecutor, I was in charge for a short while of all the people in this one county in New Jersey who were not guilty by reason of insanity. And trust me, they all get out. They all eventually get out regardless of how violent the underlying conduct was, because it's not about the conduct, it's about, is she now or is he now a danger to himself or others? Well, she's never a danger if she's taking her medicine. But how do you guarantee that she's going to take her medicine? That was the problem here. She's not taking the medicine.
But Vinny, what do we do? What do we do with these people, though? We have people with serious mental health conditions that fall through the cracks every single day, and nobody pays attention to them, and they get ignored until their mental illness manifests itself as violence, as a horrific act. So what is the answer? Do we throw them all in prison where they won't be treated?
Not
Perhaps
prison.
They'll commit additional acts of violence in prison?
What you've got to do is when they do little things.
Structure in this country.
When they do little things like wandering through the lobby of the police station and looking like they're a little bit off, you've got to take action, and that didn't happen here. It's a big problem. I understand it. Great news. They're all staying, folks, all three for the whole hour. Up next, we're going to talk about the death of Celeste Rivas out in California, the woman who was found inside the trunk of a Tesla owned by a internet and recording artist celebrity named David. We've got an update there, plus coming up next hour. Tonight on Vinny Politan investigates a Georgia community shaken. A teenage girl accused of murdering her own mother and stepfather. Detectives say the crime scene told one story, but her 911 call told another. What really happened inside that Carroll County home, and why would a daughter turn on the people who raised her? Tonight, we investigate.
Join Court TV's Vinny Politan with the latest and breaking true crime stories.
Now, let's look at the other side of all of that.
Vinny Politan investigates tonight, 9/8 Central, only on Court TV.
A wife accused of murdering her prominent attorney husband, and the defense involves blaming her own sons?
Victim to verdict with Ted Rollins. New episode Saturday night, 8 Eastern and Pacific.
Only on Court TV.
I was such an internet kid. The internet is really what I claim as my home. Like, if you ask me where I'm from, I say the internet.
He actually grew to fame on TikTok. So he had this huge following of young people. He blew up, and now he is doing a world tour.
What has connected him, first and foremost, is the fact that Celeste's remains were found in a car in the trunk of a Tesla registered under his name.
She actually would have turned 15 on September 7th, which is the day before her body was I guess, discovered in this Tesla.
He was an adult, she was a minor. She was found in a car registered to him. We're talking about David and Celeste Rivas. Now, still waiting for those results, the final results from the toxicology in the case, and I'm sure that'll be a big part of this investigation. But this is turning into a tough case. I mean, a young woman, she's not even a young woman, she's a teenage girl, is found dead inside the trunk of a guy who's an internet superstar, whose career is just exploding, but now things are kind of coming back on him on the internet. The internet has gone wild on this case. And a lot of things are coming, coming to the surface, including this. Take a look at this from Digital Music News. Coverage of Celeste Rivas Hernandez's death has slowed while authorities continue their investigation, but a post from Twitter user Anglisi, a former associate of Burke's, who is David, the artist, claims that chats sent to him are from someone claiming to be another girl that David had, quote, dated in 2023 while she was underage. Multiple screenshots of these texts were also posted on Reddit, showing Burke, who's David's, alleged manipulative behavior. These include lines like, I would love to have a public relationship with someone, but the way this is going, we have to be a secret. And mentioning that the other party still had a couple of years of high school left. Now, none of these alleged messages or claims have been confirmed by law enforcement, nor has David been named as a suspect in the ongoing investigation. But when will we get to some conclusion here? Is this going to end up as an unsolved mystery? Let's bring back in our think tank. Still with us, Carmen Rowe, Lori Murray, and Ali Benevento. Lori, what's it going to take here for something to happen? He owns the car. Her body's found in the car. They have these matching tattoos. Now we've got information perhaps connected to another underage girl, again, not confirmed. Do you think law enforcement is working overtime trying to put the pieces together here?
Well, I certainly hope that they are. I mean, this is obviously the most serious of offenses. The young girl is dead. The problem that they're encountering right now is they don't really have a cause of death. They're waiting on toxicology results to show if she had a drug overdose. But for me, if she is not sitting up in that car and decomposing or riding in the back seat or somewhere, then somebody put her body in that bag in the front trunk on the vehicle. So there's obviously some foul play here, whether it's actually someone who's responsible for her death or actually just moving her body and covering up her death. And if he is the one who's having some kind of sexual relationship with a young girl of 14 years old, then certainly he's going to try and hide that. So whether she died at the hands of another, whether it's a homicide or not, drug overdose accident, there's still some kind of charge that needs to be pressed here.
When? Carmen, when are we going to do this? I mean, like, the internet's on fire, right? And I get it. The internet, there's a different standard of proof. There's like no standards. I get it. But at the end of the day, he was very public in what he was doing as an internet star and celebrity. But this whole private life of him seemed to be very hidden. But just the fact that there's a connection between his car and her body and no one's been charged with anything?
Vinny, wait for it. I mean, here's the thing. Her body was dismembered, as I understand it, in the trunk. So this isn't going to turn into maybe she accidentally overdosed. I know we're waiting on the toxicology, but the truth is, I think that David has a high-profile lawyer whose job and the most important thing she's doing for him is to tell him to keep quiet. I think law enforcement is dealing with that attorney, a high-profile case, and they are dotting their I's and crossing their T's. But make no mistake, there is a lot going on here with David, and I think it's just a matter of time before he's charged with either abuse of a corpse, sexual assault of a minor, and or this murder. And I maybe all of them at the same time, but there's no question that he's connected to this death. And the question we're waiting to hear is when they're going to charge him and with what. But I don't think it's a question of if they charge him.
And this is another example of just how, people say to me all the time that justice does not care about how much money you have, or actually that it does. Because if this guy didn't have the money that he has to afford that lawyer that he has, he would 100% be charged by now with something, at least the abuse of a corpse, 100%.
Yeah.
You think they would jump in already? The circumstances here, Allie, the car is like abandoned and he's on tour. So I'm wondering, did anyone else have access to his car? What's the history there? Shouldn't there be some level of evidence one way or the other? And if he is truly innocent and not connected, shouldn't he be providing the information about who had access to his car?
Well, I think I would imagine that his lawyer may be gathering that very information right now, even though, of course, we know that's not his burden. He doesn't have to prove himself innocent, but at this point in time, he hasn't been charged. So I think it would behoove him to gather as much evidence to the contrary of the narrative that's being pushed right now. And I agree with Carmen. That's probably exactly what his lawyers are busy doing, dotting their I's, crossing their T's, just bracing for what is probably coming. Because if it's not this girl, if it's not being responsible for her death, then what about this other girl? There may be a lot of people that they're talking to, but I think there's no doubt about it. I wouldn't want to be David right now. He's got too much going on.
Right, but and I have this discussion, I guess I would call it, with defense attorneys all the time about truly innocent people and the way they act versus people who are under suspicion and may not be so innocent. Like, if you're actually innocent and you care at all about this young woman, wouldn't you be like talking and cooperating and maybe, sending out a note about how tragic all of this is and that you're innocent? I mean, is an innocent person gonna remain completely silent under these circumstances?
That
They
depends
are
on
if
whether
they have a
watched
good
it.
lawyer that we know he has. Trust the
No,
police.
he is cooperating. That's the memo they're sending out. He and his lawyer are cooperating. He canceled all his tours. I mean, how are you supposed to act when you're innocent versus when you're guilty? I don't know. But he's taking proactive steps in this case.
Okay, well.
I'm telling you, I watched Dateline.
He's
keeping my
lived his
mouth
whole
shut.
life on the World Wide Web, and now all of a sudden he's disappeared. I mean, that's the difference. Like he's changed his mode. Like he was like an open book. I grew up on the internet. The internet raised me. And now all of a sudden he's abandoned.
They found a body in his trunk.
Right. Well, explain it to
he's
the
gonna change
world.
his behavior.
Explain it to the world. If you're innocent. If you're not innocent, don't say anything, right? All right. Think Tank staying with us when we come back. These sisters. Oh, the allegations against these sisters. And I think they live in the same state as Carmen Rowe. That's next. Meet the Garcia sisters, Brenda and Tania. Now, if you believe what prosecutors are saying, these two women are beyond sick. They are twisted. Let me read to you what the Montgomery County Sheriff is saying about the Garcia sisters. On September 28th, Montgomery County Sheriff's Office deputies and detectives assigned to the Special Victims Unit responded to a call for service involving a 12-year-old child who disclosed ongoing physical and sexual abuse. The child was taken to a local hospital where medical staff confirmed injuries consistent with abuse and malnutrition. As a result of the investigation, on October 3rd, detectives executed arrest warrants for Brenda Garcia, 38 years old, and Tania Garcia, 37 years old. Charges included felony injury to a child, unlawful restraint, and invasive visual recording. Let's get to the details. This is from the arrest warrant. Are you sitting down? Deputy Ferguson stated she saw DM, who is the victim here, the accuser, injuries all over her body. DM had a large gash on the top back of her head. The gash wound was opened, and EMS told her that it appeared it could be infected. DM said she was sexually abused in Houston, and Brenda took her from that home to live with. DM said that CPS was involved with that case, but when CPS was looking for DM, Brenda told CPS that DM had moved back to Honduras with her biological mother. The arrest warrant further says that she was beaten with a thick stick on the back and legs, hit and slapped everywhere, tied up with zip ties at night and during the day to a chair for stealing food, forced to strip nude, crawl on the floor, bark like a dog while being photographed, strangled with a belt, being told, just die already. She's 12. Okay, let's check back in with our think tank. Carmen Rowe, Lori Murray, Ali Benevento. Carmen, this is near Houston where all this is happening. Explain to us how they're going to be dealt with in the system of justice there with these types of allegations.
You know, Vinny, that's a great question. Montgomery County is 30 minutes away from Houston, and it is a small, conservative place where these ladies will never leave custody. This is a place where driving while intoxicated suspects who are convicted get life in prison. These ladies are both charged with a first-degree felony, and it's likely they will get life in prison. But the notion that they're going to go home anytime soon or perhaps ever is something that is not realistic in a county like Montgomery County. And keep in mind, they have security footage and text messages where they're dotting their I's and they're crossing their T's, already put together corroborating this young lady's version of events. So.
Yeah. Ali, this, there's a lot of shocking cases we cover, obviously, but when you get to behavior like this is beyond shocking. This is demented. You are torturing a 12-year-old girl who, I guess her mom is from another country. I don't know the circumstances of her coming to the United States, but it seems like she was brought here to be abused.
Yeah, I mean, if this is all true, and assuming these ladies are convicted and found guilty, and sounds like Carmen knows if that happens, they're not going anywhere anytime soon, then if all of that is true, they will be exactly where they belong. There's a special kind of evil. There's a special kind of, as you say, demented for people who harm children, helpless individuals. These details that are coming out of this case are unimaginably horrific. I feel for this little girl. Again, assuming all of this is true, some people just should not be around children, and I really hope that this little girl gets the help that she's probably going to need for the rest of her life. I can't even imagine someone behaving in a way that's so evil.
I wonder if there's more to this, Lori. I feel like there should be more to this story, like detailing how this little girl ended up where she ended up with these people. And number two, where are all these videos and recordings ending up?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I agree with Allie that these women have a special place waiting on them. But this is a 12-year-old girl. What I read, she was staying with his uncle, who then sexually assaulted her. And then she goes for help to these women and ends up in this situation. A 12-year-old girl, in just her short little life, has been through all of this. It's horrifying and tragic, and we're seeing a lot more of it, unfortunately. But I definitely agree with other ladies. This is one that is going to go down right along with these two ladies. They're never going to see the light of day again, hopefully.
Carmen, do you think the investigation goes any further here? Because I feel like there's more to this story.
Oh, no question, Vinny. I mean, keep in mind, her mother is in Honduras. She's staying with an uncle who's sexually abusing her. And then she's taken into the care of these ladies who, for the last 6 months, have been abusing her, keeping her hostage inside the home. And apparently they have all the video evidence inside the home to show what's been going on. Now, my understanding is this 12-year-old stayed in their home because they have a young daughter in the home as well.
Wow.
I think the charges are going to pile up in this case. I think this is just the tip of the iceberg. They haven't even made their first court appearance, and we may hear more at that time as well.
Carmen Rowe, Lori Murray, Ali Benevento. Great to have you here. See you again. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, something else you need to know tonight, plus coming up next hour.
Tonight on Vinny Politan investigates a family of faith torn apart by gunfire and a 17-year-old now facing life behind bars. Police say the evidence points straight to Sarah Grace Patrick, but could there be more to the story? Was this cold-blooded murder a desperate act born from something darker, or has she been wrongfully accused? Tonight, we investigate.
Join Court TV's Vinny Politan with the latest and breaking true crime stories.
Now, let's look at the other side of all of that.
Vinny Politan investigates tonight, 9/8 Central, only on Court TV.
A wife accused of murdering her prominent attorney husband, and the defense involves blaming her own sons?
Victim to verdict with Ted Rollins. New episode Saturday night, 8 Eastern and Pacific.
Only on Court TV.
Welcome back. Time to reveal something else you need to know tonight. Take a look at the big board. Found safe update. We had this great news last night. Amazing. Brittany Gard, a mother of two from Indiana, found safe. We've got more details tonight from the Putnam County Sheriff's Office in Indiana. On October 8th, 2025 at 5:30 p.m., Putnam County Central Dispatch received a 911 cell phone call from Brittany Gard requesting assistance finding her way out of a wooded area in Hall Woods Nature Preserve east of Bainbridge, Indiana in Putnam County. One reason this is a little surprising to a lot of us is that the reports were that her cell phone was left home. So there's a lot of questions tonight about, did she have the cell phone the whole time? Was this someone else's cell phone? The Putnam County Sheriff's Office is not currently looking for any individuals of interest in this missing person investigation. There's no current threat to the general public in this case. However, the investigation is continuing. Don't forget there was also a fire, but great to have her back home. Take a look at your screens, folks. We have someone who needs your help tonight. Elijah Deshaun Ellis. Elijah, 17 years old, missing from Splendora, Texas. If you see Elijah, pick up the phone, make a call, make a difference. 911, 1-800-THE-LOST, or the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office. That number's on your screen right now. Don't go anywhere. We have another hour of live true crime. Vinnie Politan Investigates is next. In the meantime, please don't forget to hug the kids.